Well, hello, Robert. It is wonderful to see your face. We have not done a podcast now between our two busy lives. It's been several weeks.
It has.
I don't even know.
It
So we were
has.
just catching up a bit and talking like we don't really plan too much ahead as far as what we talk about, which everybody, if they have been listening, does know. So we just talked through some things, which I didn't know what I could talk about today either. So
Right.
would love for you to kind of introduce what it is that we are going to be having a little discussion about
Yeah.
today.
So lots of things been on my mind. Obviously, there's a lot of national news, but we'll stay away from that for now because that's probably deeper than we'd like to go anyway. And what I've been thinking about is something that I on and off think about in life and in business, but also in what I call my status quo disruptor personality. And that is, I like to say I put on my Superman cape. I do that in work. I like to think I do that sometimes in what I'm trying to do on LinkedIn, some of the posts I write, some of the comments to other people's posts, some of the people I follow, try to make a change, try to be influential and try to be a superhero. And it served me well, but I think at times you can be very performative and, self-boasting and doing it for the wrong reasons. But I want to describe that a little, if you will. So my grandmother instilled into me a very high sense of confidence when I was younger, that you can be anything, you can do anything. I was tested. I had a genius level IQ. You can be president. You can do anything. Uh, I would kind of run with that in spite of my parents many times kind of telling me the opposite, that you're going to be a failure and you're going to crawl home on your hands and knees and things like that. That was actually motivation for me. But the Superman cape is this persona where I see a problem many times as an opportunity. I really do, because it gives me a chance to shine. It gives me a chance to be creative and find solutions. And there were a few problems at work today that I was doing just that. I was doing things that, for whatever reason, others aren't inclined to think about. It's outside the process. They don't think about, but it's a quick and easy thing that can be done to solve a customer problem. So I kind of do that, but sometimes, I do that all the time, but sometimes you can do it for the wrong reasons. You're
Yeah,
looking to be very boastful. And in my younger years, I boasted about everything I did.
have a little
Now I'm
accomplishments.
looking at it more from a prism of how can I make a difference? And how do I keep my sanity when I'm taking on some of these challenges of trying to influence society, influence structural change, lift up people that have been kind of left behind, maybe, or held back, and that can be women, it can be minorities, it can be people of different gender identities, gay, lesbian, etc. I do lend my voice to a lot of that. How do I not be performative? How do I keep my sanity in the face of all the challenges where we seem to be going backwards on some of these issues? The 1960s were a pretty rough time. I was too young to remember them. I do remember race riots, but people who lived during that time period certainly lived through a lot. Violence. There were Kent State University, people being killed on campus that were protesting. Really tough times, Vietnam War. But we seem to be getting close to that level of chaos and fear in this country. So those are the things I'm struggling with relative to my Superman cape. Is I want to take things on and be a voice of positive change, but I want to keep my sanity through that.
Through that. Well, something that like I just kind of keep hearing and what I've experienced in my life as well is wanting to be that hero
Right.
and recognizing with when you put on that Superman cape, you feel like you're invincible. Like I am smart and I can think of things in different ways, like you were talking about with work. Some people can't see outside of the box. Their
Right.
brain just goes and process. This is how you told me it should go. Therefore, when it doesn't, everything comes to a halt rather than looking at it from different sides. And I think
Yep.
that's partly just kind of a brain type of a thing. But when you start bringing up the Superman part and wanting to make a change, and then, of course, not wanting to necessarily be patted on the back, but growing to this point,
Right.
being like, look at me. I'm so cool. Look at
Yeah.
what I do. The things that I've been working on over the last 8 years or so is really recognizing that that Superman cape That hero is part of the drama triangle.
Okay.
And when you are coming from a side of the drama triangle rather than coming from the side of an empowerment triangle, things tend to stick within the victim, villain, hero. And it's that
Okay.
constant backward, like you're just in that triangle. But we all do naturally go into one of those three in most things until we start to recognize where those are coming from. Where's that motivation coming from? Why am I doing this? Why am I trying to be,
Right.
Superman? Why do I have to have a cape on when what I really want is for change to happen for all?
Right.
So that's what I'm hearing, and I don't want that to sound off. But like you said, you want to move into this new area. So what if you took off the cape, but you became a problem solver and you became somebody that could listen and understand where other people were and bring them to a place of empowerment where they can start to think outside of the box?
And I think for sure, Kate, I am acting more and more like that. I'm learning to be an active listener. I mentor a number of people. Matter of fact, in a series of posts on LinkedIn that were on, I think, various topics around masculinity, there's a gentleman that is from Australia, younger fellow, and he's a good guy, I can tell that, but he's clearly on the other side, has some trauma that comes from DEI initiatives. And I've actually reached out to him, and I'm not going to say I'm mentoring him, but I'm giving him another voice, another person to lean on personally. So, I see him needing somebody to talk to some degree about this, because he seems to be a kind of a voice in the darkness when he weighs in on these topics. But I sense somebody who also wants to kind of work through some of this stuff. So, I said, hey, I'll make myself available. Let's chat. And we've done that. And we're staying in
That's
touch.
awesome.
And who knows where we might have him on a podcast.
That'd
So
be great.
I've definitely worked on some of that. I do remember this drama triangle concept,
Hmm.
but I don't know much about it. I think the superhero thing comes from my grandmother in large part because she would just fight every battle. And we talked about this as recently as we talked anyway. She would fight every battle. And so that was kind of me. It's like you almost like I feel from the beginning, I felt obligated to fight every battle. I
Yeah,
must battle. It's my duty. I'm strong enough. I'm smart enough. I'm capable of doing
people
this. And
doing it
people
right.
need me to do that. And I mean, quite frankly, my road rage when I was younger would be like that. How dare you cut me off? I'm going to make sure to teach you a lesson, because the other people are not going to be able to stand up to punks like you, but I will. And I'm going to speed down the road and cut you off now. And then I'm going to get out of my car and I'm going to, make sure you understand you can't do this.
You're so wrong. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
probably
I mean,
not
I
the best
literally
way
would do
to
stuff. I would do crazy ass stuff like that. And it was almost out of this sense of, it was probably a rationalization just for a shitty temper that I had, but it was a rationalization that it's my duty. I'm not doing my duty if I don't like hunt this person down that's driving recklessly and make sure they know being called out. I literally once, Kate, sitting in my car having McDonald's, which they don't eat anymore.
Thank you.
And somebody started throwing their ketchup packets outside the car, just throwing them out. So I got out of my car, picked them all up and threw them right on the person's lap. You know, I
Hmm.
that's that okay, it's my responsibility. I can do this because I am equipped for this. I am a superhero kind of attitude.
Well, what if we took that exact same thing and started to emulate from a place of how about we just do as we see others do and not as they say? I don't even know if that's the right thing. And we look at that same situation where you see somebody throwing litter out of their car, but rather than picking it up and throwing it at them, which is just a cause for a fight
Confrontation.
and confrontation, and yeah, not great. Go and pick them up. Don't even look at that person and go throw them in the trash can and just go right back to your car.
Yeah. Well, I haven't done
The
this for years.
Yeah, but like just like taking one situation and one little story and be like, okay, how the heck can I, instead of being in that, because of course that's pretty extreme. It happened, right? You wouldn't do that now.
Maybe.
Or maybe. So, what if we looked at that same situation and been like, wow, how much more impact would I have on somebody rather than being confrontational and causing some type of an unhealthy interaction with someone, and instead just went, picked it up, put it in the trash can, and didn't even give them the time of day? I would think that that person would actually think about that so much more than
Maybe.
coming back and having that heated type of a confrontation, because they're not going to learn anything by having ketchup packets thrown at them.
Yeah, they weren't real happy about that. That
But
person
no,
didn't take kindly to that, but
probably no. But what if we led ourselves in a way that showed other people that, you know what, that wasn't cool. It's not
right.
what we do here. And then I'm going to lead myself well, and I'm just going to go pick it up and I'm going to put it in the trash can. It's kind of like when you go into, like, honest to goodness, we were walking downtown Chicago yesterday and there's a flyer flying across the ground. I could have just let it keep going,
Right.
but instead I
You
put my
picked it
foot
up, I
on it,
assume.
grab it. Yes.
Yep.
And I went and I threw it away because that's who I am.
So I'll interrupt and say that's the difference between calling in and calling out. So calling in, even if you're not doing any calling, calling in would be the action of picking up that litter, throwing it away, setting an example in that case, rather
Or,
than
yeah, just
confrontation. And
being
I'm
the
I'm
good.
learning
Yeah.
slowly but surely my inclination, and some of these are more extreme examples, like
Right.
literally throwing the trash back at somebody. Um, and I did that once to somebody who was throwing cans on the street in LA of just a few years ago. She was literally throwing the cans out, and I went and picked them up and put them right back in her car. And she said, "Oh no, the homeless people picked them up." I said, no, no, you don't throw them on the ground to hope a homeless person picks them up. So I have even done this in recent times, but all of this is as I am embarking on being the disruptor of the status quo as part of what gets me up in the morning. I am learning to call in and be less confrontational. I think that's what you're describing. I
Yes.
think what I'm struggling more with these days, because I've learned to not do things like that. Quite frankly, where we are in this world is there's people that are more inclined to have a gun in their car and just shoot you
Yes.
over a ketchup packet.
Yep.
So I've kind of learned that. I have learned through experience that I can't take a punch. So, you know,
That's, yeah, we
yeah.
don't need you getting
Yeah,
physically
I am not a good I'm
harmed.
not much of a fighter. I have, pretty pronounced cheekbones and I
I
bleed
just want to
easily.
say pretty. I don't want to get punched in my face. So
Yeah. So I
oh
have
my
I have
goodness.
learned to back it down. I certainly have learned to back it down, and I've learned it's more productive to try to call people in. And even when I'm writing a post, my first inclination is thunder, and then it's like, back up. How can you say this? How can you get into their mind? How can you be a little bit empathetic, maybe see where they're coming
Right.
from? Then come up with the most biting satirical thing that'll get a lot of eyeballs, but isn't really productive.
But
But
is it really productive for change?
what I'm really struggling with, Kate, without going down partisan politics lines here,
Right.
is, there's a lot of division, polarization in this country. People that I see that I have, haven't necessarily worked with for years, but I've always known to be good people, and are probably good people, are on starting to spout stuff that's very antithetical to what I believe.
Right.
And I won't go any further than that, but saying, how do I keep myself sane while I'm starting to fight these battles? There's a fellow I follow. Actually, I did a podcast with Paul Latipo, who's written on this. How do you keep yourself sane? Like, how do you keep your cup full? What are the techniques you use to, like, diffuse some of that either anger or depressive feeling, like I can't
Right.
make a difference, I'm just one person, or the system is just completely stacked against us. There's the villain victim hero thing.
Yep.
How do you keep yourself sane within the confines of trying to make a difference, and knowing that sometimes you're going to take two steps back before you can take one forward? That's kind of what I'm
Right.
struggling with right now, because it's easy to just cut and run. I'm wealthy enough that if I didn't like what was going on in this country, I could probably move to Panama or Costa Rica or Portugal, and trust me, we've looked.
Right. Hmm.
But if I feel like I'm abandoning my family, for instance, leaving them to a
right?
thing that I was privileged enough to leave, then I can't live with myself. So if I
How
stay
do
to
we do
do the
that?
work,
Right.
how do I stay sane? Because my wife doesn't like
Well,
that side of me that is very
she
expressive.
has seen your passion for that fight. She's seen the passion for the
Oh, yeah.
fight. And you are just one of those people, which I absolutely love, that you are so opinionated and you have these very, like, you are very passionate about the things that you believe in. And I also, like, that is something that is within me, completely different topics and completely
Right.
different things in our life. But when I'm very passionate about something, of course, I'm going to exude that amount of intensity around it. But when we come to like what we're not talking about, but lightly talking about in the world of politics and in the United States right now, the huge opposites of where people are and how incredibly extreme both sides are, how do we start to bring people back to the middle?
Right.
And we are like, we're just one here and we're just one here. I have to believe that there are other people in the world that are sitting back and wanting change, but just don't know what to do.
Right.
And as far as like the sanity side of things, like how do I keep myself from getting angry? Well, we start by just taking a breath and being like, why am I going to allow somebody else to dictate how I feel?
Right.
Because that
Exactly.
immediate gut jerk reaction is like, you're an idiot. We all have it. Like, let's be real, like the driving on the road and you're like, okay, hey moron, you just cut me off, you didn't
Yeah.
use a blinker, we're going 90 miles an hour. It happened to me yesterday when we were driving. I was like, wow, my daughter's over there with her little learned road rage from me, probably, was just like, what's that idiot doing? I'm like, well honey, sometimes people can't see through their eyes.
Yeah.
Good thing I'm looking.
Yeah.
That was my road rage response yesterday. There's my atta girl for the day if we want to have one of those. um so when we're looking at wanting to be the change and we're seeing these two different sides and you becoming so passionate about people's, your opinion and their opinion, looking at what people are posting on Facebook, what side are they on in this world, and they're just so far in between. I think it just comes down to, like, you recognize these are good people. Like, I've known them for a long time. They are good people. Their belief system just doesn't match mine. And it seems to me to be very extreme.
Right.
They're thinking the exact same thing if they're even thinking. I mean, like, wow, great person. I don't agree with their thought process. I don't agree with whatever. How extreme are they over here? And so we have this battle and this fight of thought processes when we're not coming together to find a solution. And as history has indicated, as a whole, we don't know how to communicate. We do not know how to bridge the divide. And I think right now things are just so far on either end. I don't know
Yeah.
if the one person and the one person, the one person can make a change.
Yeah. I don't
But
think we should. Yeah. I don't think we should even attempt to say we have answers to that.
oh, we don't. I don't think that there's any way that we could have an answer. I don't think that there are enough people that could come together and communicate at a high enough level to even create change at this point in this moment where we're at in this world. Um, so what I'm going to do for myself is just lead myself well.
Yeah. And
There's going to be some things that go on outside of what I can control, but I can control me.
I'll add to it that my work is so demanding. The level of work, the amount of work, that what I place on myself, and it's not my manager placing these
Right.
responsibilities necessarily. The what I've decided to take on in my work role is so demanding that I'll often be behind this desk 10, 11 hours in a day. Now, maybe not
Right.
all, not all
And one
at
sitting, but
once,
still,
but
yes.
I might start at 6 and knock off at 4 and start again at 7 and work till 8:30 and stuff like that.
Right.
So my problem is I feel like I haven't done enough podcasts. I haven't done my newsletter. I didn't share anything on Excel to highlight my data guru side. I haven't created enough posts. The glass ceiling project isn't moving fast enough. I can't get
Right.
engagement there. I should be doing more. I should be doing more. I should be doing more. I have the Superman cape. I'm not putting it on. I should be doing more. It's 8:30. I'm tired, but I should be doing more.
Right.
That's what I
Right.
struggle with. That's what
Okay.
I always struggle with. I should be doing more. I have brought, not figuratively, literally, but figuratively, I have broad shoulders. I can carry the weight. It is my responsibility. I was given this gift to challenge the status quo. I must do more. How do I keep myself sane when I'm not working 24 hours, 7 days a week to
Well,
do more? That's part of what I
as
struggle
you
with.
recognized, it is a self-imposed work ethic that you have. And rather than looking at, I need to do more, I want to do more, it is on my shoulders, maybe it could be more of a thought process of how can I change one today? What is it that I could do to change one thing for myself or for one person or for the world?
Right. That
And
always comes
rather
down
than,
to incremental, what
yes, it
what you have
does.
control over.
What you have control over. And when you really start to look at a compound effect of something that you are passionate about, that is where we can get that data. You're a data guy, where we can look at the whole and be like, wow, okay, this is where I started so long ago. And these are the incremental changes that I've made over time. So rather than looking at, I have to change the whole world, I have to eat the whole elephant in one bite, you can really start to take a look at it and be like, okay, have I progressively gotten 1% better? That's my 1% better. I need to be 1% better today because I can't be 100%. I
Right.
can't be 100% every day. The demands of life and time and things like that, it's finite. Like I only have 24 hours a day. Okay? Or I can say, wow, I have 24 hours in the day. How and what is going to take that time today? I've learned to number one, I have to prioritize myself. What fills my cup? So
Right.
you said stressing out. How is it that I keep my sanity? Well, we have to start with you taking care of you because there is nobody else on this planet that can for you.
Yep.
So for me, sleep, because I know how I function better when I have my proper sleep. Everything is better. My exercise. Okay. It is not as intense as I want it to be. We all know I had surgery and things like that, but even the amount of time that I would like to spend or the things that I would do, it's lacking. So I don't focus on that. I shift. I'm like, what can I do? This is what I'm going to do. My nutrition, how do I plan that out so that I have those things on hand so that I'm ready, set, go? Okay. Those are my first things. Then I move
Right.
into my family because, well, I'm a mom and I have to take care of them. And I have this dog that with his freaking cone. And how do I take care of them next? Because that is my job. It's the most important thing on my list. It's more important than everything else
Right.
because that is my role. Then I start to fill in those next things. Okay. So this the rocks, the paper, or the rock, the paper, the rock, the pebbles, the sand, the water. So
Right.
as you start to like, if you visualize how do I use my time? Okay. Stress management is part of that. So for me, that comes through my exercise. That is where I solidify my brain because it's not always
Same.
positive. It's
Very,
not.
very much the same for me.
Right. And then we start filling in those pebbles of, okay, rock, yes, work is a rock. These are the things that are the most important things to do. And of course, everything's going to, we talked about pivoting in the moment and learning how, when we have a plan for the day, we want to accomplish these things, but life throws you a curveball and you have to kind of veer off. You can go and reevaluate that list for the day rather than saying, oh, but I still have 86 more things to do and be like, okay, what are the most important of these things that must be done? What is time sensitive? What, whatever it has to be. And then a conversation I actually had, I talked to my friend Joe today, and one of my greatest friends from high school, and he and I keep in touch just like super randomly. He and his wife and his son even came to like Olivia's graduation party because I hadn't seen them in so incredibly
Nice.
long. And they live in the city. He's like, oh my gosh, you want to stop by if Olivia needs a place to come? Great guy. So I'm talking to him and he's just like, okay, what's been going on in life? And we're kind of just sharing the different types of things, but our brain process is so incredibly similar now where those negative things happen. But we literally just talked about how when we start to say the things that are not going well, that's exactly where our brain focuses.
Sure.
And instead of focusing on all of the things that very easily could be wrong, we can take that exact same thought and we can flip it over and be like, why am I giving my energy to the negative when I could be giving my energy to the positive and finding the solution
And and
and spending my brain
if you
space
remember
there.
something, Kate, we talked on the edge of this from a kind of from the other side, and that is I can draw a lot of energy from negativity. You know,
Yes.
that will inspire me quite often, but it can become like infectious at the same time where you just are focusing on and dwelling in everything negative then. So,
Well,
I'm learning how to balance some of these things better.
maybe we
But
just look at that fundamental thought process of I gain and it pushes me from the negative. Does it, or does it push you further down into the negative and you feel like maybe you have a Superman cape on, but you're still flying over negativity land?
yeah, I don't know. Have to think about
I
these
don't know.
things.
We'll have to think about these things. Like this, that's why I like talking about these things. We just like brainstorm ideas outside. So when we feel that maybe something negative is pushing us, is it really pushing us towards the positive, or is it just pushing us down this one stream versus taking us over to the other side where you can look at that same thing and be like, wow, there are a lot of horrible things happening. Am I going to let that spur me? Am I going to be like, okay, what is that 1% thing that's going to be a positive flip for fill in the blank? What if I, instead of looking for the look at how many changes that I have made for all of these people, look what a good job I've done, rather than looking for the accolades of that, just be like, okay, I know that just because I was on this earth today, that somebody's life is better. That one person needed to hear whatever it is that I said. And I know that because they just told me, wow, I really needed to hear that today.
Right.
You really listened to me, like you're becoming an active listener. You really heard what I was saying. Thank you, because I haven't felt heard in 20 years. That's the one thing that can change, in my opinion, people. So when we're looking at the world that we live in, picking up those ketchup packets and just being like, it doesn't matter that your brain functions that way. My brain functions in the wow, there's a mess. I'm going to be the good. I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to clean it up. And I'm going to keep it in a positive light, even though we have that thought process like you're a moron, because we
Right.
will.
Of
But
course.
instead of staying in that drama triangle where, they're tossing out the trash and we're going to pick it up, and instead of being like, wow, I really did my good today because you're an idiot and I taught you a lesson, we could really come and be like, wow, I do not want my grandchildren to grow up on an earth where it is just full of litter and we have nothing left.
Yeah.
Or I really want to work with that person in business and I see like your Australian guy, and to be like, I see a need that they have because I see them, I hear them, I'm actively listening, and be like, hey, I'd love to talk. We can talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, his whole his if I can summarize it well, his whole concern is that diversity equity movements, I guess it's twofold. Are first, a lot of white guys who have had privileged lives out there making a buck off of it, and he sees hypocrisy. Whether that's true or not with some of them, I can't say, but I'd like to think it's not. The second thing is that he feels he's had an experience where he's been told that he was going to be promoted and then was told, actually, you're going to be laid off because we have to have more women and people of color in positions, and we can't move all you young bucks up
Right.
in the
Reverse
system.
discrimination is a real thing.
So he's been burned. And then, we talked to him and I said, but are you just focusing on that? Is that where you're always focusing your attention? That everything then becomes
Right.
victimhood.
Yes.
Everything is related to that because what you begin attracting negativity, so when you take your
Exactly.
next job interview, you're going in with some sort of a chip and people are detecting that. So we had an interesting first talk and we've chatted a few times. I see his comments. He's thoughtful, but he's predictable. And I told him that. But what I saw was somebody who's saying, hey, where are the mentors for the young guys who are feeling bruised and battered by this? Whether it's
Right.
true that they are or not, that's how they feel.
Right. Of course.
And it helped me come to a different conclusion, or not a conclusion, because I think you're always learning, but it helped me to come to a different understanding when I'm taking on this work, that we people of my age, we boomers, can say, this is how I experienced the world. And so therefore somebody who's 20 something is experiencing it the way I did when I was 20. And it's clearly not
Yeah.
the case. There weren't DEI initiatives when I was 20.
Right.
Not that I recall anyway, in the 80s, early 80s, I do not recall them being a lot of DEI type initiatives. So I have to recognize that I do have a different viewpoint. And I
Right.
recognize that in other areas, but in this one I didn't. It was a bit of a blind spot. So by talking to somebody who at first I want to be really combative with and say, hey, I've got a nice snarky thing I can say in response to his snarkiness. This is pretty
Right.
clever, isn't it? That's kind of how the mind thinks at first. I have to pause, take the breath, and say, okay, I'm not going to type that out. Let me really think of this through a little deeper. So, I'm working to be the 5 characteristics that I say on my LinkedIn profile, and that is distribution advocate, data guru, questioner of the status quo. That would be a good band,
Status quo. That's
the
good.
status quo, um,
I like that.
questioner of the status quo, family man and athlete, and I try to
No
live
air
up to
quotes there,
those.
by the way. No
What's
air
that?
quotes by that. Take those air quotes out of the athlete part. Put those hands back
Yeah,
together,
I actually
friend.
have had a pretty good week. No alcohol, 5 days.
Hey,
It's off
congratulations.
tonight, though. We're going to a winery. But
Oh, well, then there's that.
I've decided, I made a decision to just challenge myself and make sure that it wasn't going to be some sort of jittery fight that I couldn't have a drink. And it's been nice not having a drink, but it's going to be
It's
nice
kind of
having a
nice
glass
to
of
do
wine
that.
tonight too.
Absolutely, because
Um,
it's a more special occasion rather than just being home.
exactly. But my eating's been on point. I've been eating certain snacks. Dare I say the program?
Nice. Fun fact, when you got on today, I was like, wow, you're looking pretty svelte.
Oh,
First thought, I
thanks.
was like, you look pretty
I
good.
am down. I have dropped some of that excess weight, although I'm still higher than I was, but I've been back to a push-up routine
Nice.
because that instead of going to the gym to get my exercise, I just don't feel like it. It takes too much time. But if I do through the day a couple hundred push-ups, it actually works a lot of my body. It's
Yes, it
something I'm
does,
gonna
sir.
because I've got to think
Push-ups
about
are
how do I
great.
manage my time because I want to fit more into it. Going to the
Yes.
gym, being at the gym, sitting between sets, doing the heavy weights doesn't do much more, in my opinion, than just a good a good push up with good form.
With exactly, and then you're making it work for you. What can I do versus what can't
So
I do?
yeah, so I've been
It
on
doesn't
point.
have to be thought
The
of just like
athlete part
that.
of me has
Good,
been on point, and
good.
my short rides have been in a good pace. For an old guy, I'm pretty
Awesome.
pleased. I'm still over 18 miles an hour. So all of that's been what's on my mind. I feel like I'm not doing enough lately. I feel like I'm not posting enough. I feel
Right.
like I'm not probing enough.
Yeah. I think that we
But
all go through those times, especially those of us that really do want to make a change in this world. And when it really comes down to it, we have to recognize that we are just one person. We are only human, and it's going to cycle through where you have more time or you're making more time for certain things. When you start to recognize that, you're just pushed too thin and it is weighing on you in a way where you're not getting any type of positivity out of
right,
the experience, then of
satisfaction.
course, then what are you doing? Like that is then not helping anybody because it's not helping you. And I'm not trying to be self-centric, but you truly have to be happy in your life to walk around and make a change. And if you're not filling your
Yep.
cup, you won't. And if you're stretched too thin, you won't, unless we start focusing on what can I do?
Right.
So there's been a lot of switching and flipping and learning how to pivot in the moment. Like we talked about that really quick, and I'll just like overskirt that pivot moment where the schedule changes or
Hey,
the water starts flooding in your basement, and that was not on the docket for that day
yeah,
or the next day or the next day.
yeah,
And so it's like, okay, what can shift and change without even having like the more you practice that positive mindset, the easier it gets. Because my first could have been doom and gloom.
oh
Here we
yeah.
go again, whatever. I
Why is this
honestly,
happening to me?
it, I have practiced so long. It wasn't happening to me. It was just happening. There was no rhyme nor reason. Like we had torrential rain and
Yeah,
horrible storms for days in a row. So what did I do? I was like, well, here comes another storm. Let me go downstairs. I'll change my schedule. I'll go downstairs. I'll watch it for when it starts popping through the wall and I'll catch it.
Yeah.
And I've got beach towels and I've got shop vacs and I've got all of these things at my disposal to take care of a problem. Thankfully, I didn't get feet and feet of water like other people did, and I
Yeah.
feel horrible for whatever. But once I saw what was happening, what did I start doing? I started cleaning up the floor. I started getting everything moved to the side. Maybe I used muscles that I shouldn't have moved, and maybe I had to stop myself and be like,
Yeah.
hey, you're still broken over here. But then I was like, okay, where's my son? Where's my daughter? Where, like, who do I have that are going to come immediately to help
Right.
me so that I can just make it work? And there was no, it was awful, but it could have been worse. And so I really never got into the victim portion of that. And I can really attribute that to just really practicing
Yeah.
of when life throws you, what my friends say, throws you lemon, make limoncello. It was very cute. I was like, that's
Limoncello.
good.
Okay.
Like make limoncello.
Don't get me
I was like,
started again on drinking, but I do like limoncello.
it's Friday.
Yeah.
But really being able to pivot in the moment. Maybe that's something that you can really think about and be like, okay, why am I putting on a Superman cape? Why am I feeling like I have to make change by being a powerful force in somebody's face? Because
Right.
most people do not respond to that, they'll react.
Yeah.
And so, are you here on this earth to get a reaction, or are you here on this earth to have an understanding of people? And maybe that's where we just
Yep.
do better.
So basically, you said do better incrementally, and I say I need to human at a higher level effectively.
Hey, there
Continue
we
to work
go.
on that.
We'll just flip flop our sayings. I love it.
That's right.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me today. It's been a minute since we've been able to talk.
It
So
has. It has.
good. Okay, until the next time then.
Okay. Until the next time.